Negotiators have reached a tentative deal to end a strike at the busiest rail system in North America, which caused travel chaos for thousands of commuters Monday. New York Governor Kathy Hochul stated the agreement between unions and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, or MTA, delivers raises for workers while protecting riders and taxpayers. The strike involved unions representing about 3,500 workers who had been protesting after failing to reach an agreement with rail management over pay and work rules. At New York's Penn Station, where roughly 600,000 people pass through daily, the morning was quiet as commuters struggled to find alternative travel. The rail system serves an estimated 250,000 people each weekday traveling to New York's eastern suburbs and Long Island's beaches. Governor Hochul added that service on the Long Island Railroad is set to resume on Tuesday at noon. The initial strike began on Saturday, leading to reports of residents like one trying to reach a Long Island airport saying, "There are no trains." The MTA had offered free shuttle buses in the city for some routes, but also warned of severe congestion and delays. The next concrete step is the resumption of service on the Long Island Railroad Tuesday at noon. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that an American national was being evacuated to Germany after developing symptoms over the weekend. Officials also stated that the CDC was working to evacuate at least 6 other Americans who, World Health Organization, had been exposed to the virus. The ongoing Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo has seen reports of at least 131 deaths, with more than 513 suspected cases, according to officials. The CDC did not identify the American working in the country who became ill on Sunday. Separately, a medical missionary group stated that one of its U.S. doctors, Peter Stafford, had tested positive for Ebola after being exposed while treating patients at Nyan Hospital in Bunia. The agency is sending staff from Atlanta to assist with the response at the outbreak's epicenter. The next update will come from the CDC regarding the status of the other exposed individuals. Officials stated that actions taken by law enforcement played a pivotal role in preventing the attack from being much worse. The incident occurred Monday morning at the Islamic Center of San Diego, where police were first called to the mosque at 11:43 local time. Upon arrival, officers observed what appeared to be 3 deceased victims outside the front of the building. Investigators are examining the circumstances surrounding the shooting. Meanwhile, the motive for the attack remains unknown. It is presumed by some to be a hate crime due to the mosque's status as the largest in San Diego County, and based on writings attributed to one suspect. Police also reported that suspects had opened fire from a vehicle at a landscaper who was uninjured. Separately, about 2 hours before the shooting, the mother of one of the suspects had called police to report that her son had left home with several firearms in her car. The suspects were later found dead of self-inflicted wounds in a vehicle blocks away from the mosque. The initial call to the mosque was made while officers were investigating a report about a possibly suicidal teen who had run away from home. Authorities have not yet identified the 3 victims by name. The next developments depend on further filings or responses from investigators. The report says U.S. prosecutors asked a judge to dismiss criminal fraud and conspiracy charges against Indian billionaire Gautam Adani. Charges related to an arrangement involving Adani Green Energy Ltd to sell solar power to the Indian government. Lawyers representing Adani and his co-defendants consented to the request for dismissal. Adani, one of the world's richest people, was accused in 2024 of paying massive bribes to ensure the project's success. He was indicted in federal court in Brooklyn on charges of conspiracy, securities fraud and wire fraud charges in connection with a lucrative arrangement for Adani Green Energy Ltd and another firm to sell 12 gigawatts of solar power to the Indian government to light millions of homes and businesses. The Adani Group denied the allegations at the time, calling them baseless. The filing bore the names of Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General R. Trent McCotter and Brooklyn U.S. Attorney Joseph Nocella, Jr. Adani was originally accused of duping Wall Street investors who invested billions into a solar project in India, and was also accused of paying massive bribes. President Donald Trump announced he is holding off on a military strike against Iran that was planned for Tuesday, citing that serious negotiations are currently underway. The announcement came via a social media post on Monday, following weekend threats that time was running out for Iran to reach a deal or face renewed fighting. Trump stated that he was calling off the planned strike at the request of allied leaders, specifically naming Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. He also warned that U.S. forces would remain prepared to conduct a full, large-scale assault on Iran with little notice if an acceptable agreement is not reached. Earlier, Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan noted that the immediate focus of negotiations between the U.S. and Iran was keeping the Strait of Hormuz open, though Iran's nuclear program remained a central issue. Fidan also mentioned that much of Iran's enriched uranium, potentially usable for a nuclear weapon, was reportedly buried under collapsed tunnels following attacks in June. The announcement comes amid polling data from the New York Times and Siena, which showed that 64% of voters believed it was the wrong decision to go to war with Iran. That same survey found that only 37% of voters approve of Trump's job performance as president. The administration has previously set deadlines for Tehran regarding a deal, and Trump has stated that he has had periods where talks seemed close to an agreement before falling apart. The next step remains dependent on whether the negotiations can establish an acceptable deal between the parties. The Supreme Court avoided taking up a legal question that could severely limit the enforcement of the Voting Rights Act's remaining protections for minority voters. This decision comes after the court had previously weakened aspects of the Voting Rights Act. The ruling's implications may affect state and local elections. The next update will need to clarify what changes, who is affected, and what officials or records confirm. Former Google CEO Eric Schmidt was booed by students during a speech at the University of Arizona graduation ceremony, an incident that highlighted growing student anxiety regarding artificial intelligence and job security. During his remarks, Schmidt compared the current AI boom to the rise of computers 4 decades earlier. This jeers rang out at the venue. Schmidt acknowledged the mood, stating, "I can hear you," while comparing the technology to past industrial shifts. He urged the graduates to adapt to this sprawling technology, noting that AI will shape the world. The reaction reflects a broader unease across campuses. For instance, a Lumina Foundation Gallup study suggests that many students are rethinking their academic paths due to fears of automation. Additionally, a Pew Research Center survey indicated that half of all American adults are more concerned than excited about AI's increasing use in daily life. Other speakers have faced similar receptions. Gloria Caulfield experienced a similar moment at the University of Central Florida, and Scott Borchetta was met with jeers at Middle Tennessee State University. The next test for graduates and the workforce involves navigating this technological shift, as students are reportedly focusing on fields emphasizing critical thinking and communication. The Supreme Court acted on a case involving the Voting Rights Act, sending a closely watched ruling back for reconsideration after the High Court weakened aspects of the Civil Rights era law. The justices ordered lower courts to re-examine a decision that had previously undercut a key enforcement mechanism for the law. This legal action follows a ruling from the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals concerning 2 Native American tribes in North Dakota. That appeals court had determined that only the federal government has the authority to sue to enforce the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court had previously blocked this ruling in July, which had allowed the tribe's preferred voting maps to remain in place temporarily. Furthermore, the court also sent the case back for reconsideration on Monday. Advocacy groups note that the decision could jeopardize 3 new majority black state legislative districts, though one source indicated those effects might not be felt until 2027. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson dissented from the decisions, writing that both rulings should have been reversed. The case remains in a procedural phase, with the court directing a review of the prior ruling. Jury selection began Monday in the trial of a former assistant principal in Virginia accused of ignoring warnings that a 6-year-old student brought a loaded gun to school that was later used to shoot his first-grade teacher. Ebony Parker is charged with 8 counts of felony child neglect. one for each of the bullets in the gun brought into Rich Neck Elementary School teacher Abby Warner's classroom in Newport News in January 2023. Prosecutors have said she allegedly committed a willful act or omission in the care of such students in a manner so gross, wanton and culpable as to show a reckless disregard for human life, according to court documents. Parker's attorneys were in court Monday morning and could not be reached for comment about her defense. Last November, a jury awarded $10 million to Warner, siding with her claims in a lawsuit that Parker ignored repeated warnings that the child had a gun. The shooting sent shock waves through this military shipbuilding community and the country at large, with many wondering how a child so young could gain access to a gun and shoot his teacher. Parker was the only defendant in the lawsuit. The available reporting is at the allegation or investigative stage, with court filings and official statements carrying the main evidentiary weight. A Trump-backed challenger has defeated a two-term Republican senator who had previously voted to convict Donald Trump during his 2021 impeachment trial. The outcome comes as the challenger advances in Louisiana's high-stakes contest. This result contrasts with the fact that Trump was acquitted by the Senate after a vote of 57 to 43, which fell short of the two-thirds majority needed for conviction. The defeated Senator Bill Cassidy was one of 7 Republican senators who voted to convict Trump following the January 6 attack on the Capitol. Of those 7, only 3 senators remain in the Senate: Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Susan Collins of Maine, and Cassidy himself. During his campaign, Cassidy spoke about his relationship with the former president, telling reporters he felt they work really well together, referencing bills he sponsored that the president later signed into law. Meanwhile, the challenger Julia Ledlow stated, "I want to say thank you to a very special man. The best president this country has ever had, President Donald Trump." The next step in the contest will see the top 2 candidates face off again in a runoff election scheduled for late June. A federal judge in California dismissed a lawsuit filed by Elon Musk against the maker of ChatGPT after a jury determined that he exceeded the statute of limitations. The legal action involved Musk claiming that OpenAI, which he co-founded, had betrayed its original mission of developing artificial intelligence for the good of humanity when it established a for-profit arm. OpenAI's other co-founders, including Sam Altman, stated that Musk was aware of the company's plans throughout the process. The dismissal followed a trial that the judge ordered due to a discrepancy in facts regarding when Musk was aware of OpenAI's transition. During the proceedings, Musk stated that he was paying attention, but was not fully aware, noting that he often only read the first page of documents sent to him. In a related procedural detail, the judge had previously ordered the trial because of this factual discrepancy concerning Musk's knowledge of the company's plans. Musk has faced multiple legal setbacks recently, including a loss in a lawsuit against advertisers that left the platform that same month. During the proceedings, one observer stated that in many ways Musk is simply another business person asserting his rights. Musk has vowed to appeal the verdict, and the case's next step depends on any subsequent filings or court action. In one instance, a couple separated by immigration detention marks a separation that has not occurred in 50 years. Their story is rooted in a life lived on the land, a life that began just years after India gained independence from British colonial rule in 1947. The situation involves the 2,500 miles border shared by India and Bangladesh, a nation that was once part of pre-independence India. In Assam, authorities have reportedly deported more than 1,000 people to Bangladesh over the past year, often without due process. Advocacy groups have stated that the citizenship crackdown occurring in Assam is an extension of policies from the Modi administration. These disputes have surfaced amid broader political tensions in eastern India, including allegations of voter suppression targeting Muslims. The core issue centers on families fighting to prove their right to belong in the country they have always known. The legal and political context surrounding these citizenship claims remains a central point of dispute. The immediate focus remains on the families involved, such as one where a patriarch's wife was detained, highlighting the ongoing struggle to establish legal status and residency rights.